This act covers the impossible hybrid, the Navy's desperate attempt to bridge the gap between propeller power and jet speed. We dive into the illegal engineering of the propeller. While most planes try to avoid the tips of their props hitting the speed of sound, the Thunderscreech was built to do it on purpose. We detail the Allison T-54 dual-unit engine, a 5,850 horsepower monster that forced the propeller blades to spin at Mach 1.1, even while the plane was just sitting on the tarmac. We explore the visual shock waves. The sound was so intense that you could actually see the air warping around the propeller in visible waves. We describe the 30-minute nightmare, the warm-up sequence required before takeoff. Because the engine was so complex, the plane had to roar at full volume for half an hour before it could move, effectively holding the entire airbase hostage to its noise. This segment explains the forbidden aerodynamics of how a propeller designed for supersonic speeds actually works, and why it was a mechanical disaster from day one.
This act shifts from the machine to the human toll of the world's loudest aircraft. We open with the flight line scandal at Edwards Air Force Base. When the XF-84H was rolled out for testing, the military quickly realized they hadn't built a fighter, they had built an illegal sonic weapon. We break down the 135 decibel death zone. The sound produced by the supersonic propeller tips was so intense that it didn't just hurt the ears, it physically attacked the body. We explore the medical reports of 1955, detailing the forbidden symptoms experienced by ground crews: sudden nausea, uncontrollable vomiting, and explosive migraines that lasted for days after a single engine test. The core of this segment is the seizure incident. We recount the harrowing story of a crew chief inside a nearby C-47 transport plane. Even though he was shielded by his own aircraft's fuselage, the low-frequency vibrations from the Thunderscreech's propeller were so powerful they resonated with his nervous system, inducing a full-blown seizure on the tarmac. We analyze the physics of vibration, how the sound waves were actually visible as shimmering shocks in the air, capable of knocking a man unconscious if he stood too close to the intake. We detail the forbidden communication, the fact that the roar was so absolute it rendered $1,000 radio headsets useless. The control tower had to resort to using illegal light signals, Aldis lamps, to communicate with the pilot because no microphone on Earth could filter out the scream of the T-54 engine. The act concludes with the pilot's rebellion. We dive into the testimony of test pilot Lynn Hendricks, the only man brave or crazy enough to fly the Screech multiple times. We describe the cockpit nightmare. The vibration was so severe that Hendricks reported his vision would blur to the point where he couldn't see the runway during landing. We look at the illegal feedback he gave the Republic engineers, famously telling them that the plane was a mechanical failure that was physically breaking the men who flew it. This act ends as the Air Force doctors officially declare the aircraft a health hazard, setting the stage for the military's desperate attempt to bury the project before it killed its own crew. The final act explores the sudden death of the Thunderscreech program and the cold-blooded military math that led to its erasure. We begin with the tactical scandal, the realization that the XF-84H was a strategic nightmare. In a real-world combat scenario, the illegal sound signature was so massive that an enemy radar wouldn't even be necessary. The plane could be heard coming from 25 miles away, giving any target nearly 5 minutes of warning before the plane even appeared on the horizon. We analyzed the carrier deck disaster, the Navy's realization that if they launched this sonic monster from a ship, the vibrations would likely shatter the light bulbs, crack the radar dishes, and incapacitate every sailor on the flight deck. The middle of this act focuses on the mechanical mutiny. We dive into the forbidden maintenance logs that revealed a terrifying truth. The propeller's gearbox was a ticking bomb. Because of the extreme 5,850 horsepower being funneled into a single shaft, the vibrations were literally shaking the plane apart from the inside. We detail the final shutdown. After only 12 total test flights, 11 of which ended in emergency landings due to mechanical failure or pilot disorientation, the Air Force and Navy pulled the plug. We explore the illegal salvage. The military was so embarrassed by the Thunderscreech that they didn't just cancel it, they tried to bury the data, labeling the project a technological dead end that wasted millions of taxpayer dollars on a machine that couldn't even talk to its own control tower. The finale examines the quiet legacy of the loudest plane in history. We trace the underground lessons, how the failure of the XF-84H forced NASA and the FAA to create the first strict noise pollution laws for aviation. We look at the symmetry breaker today. The only surviving prototype sits in the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, its engine hollowed out and its propellers frozen in place. We conclude with a chilling reflection on the price of speed. The Thunderscreech remains a monument to the era when engineers pushed the laws of physics so far that they forgot about the humans in the cockpit. The video ends with the engine finally cutting out, leaving the audience with the ghostly silence of the loudest failure in history.